Have you ever given your all? Your time, your money, even your heart, only to realize the people you trusted were willing to betray you? This is not just a story about a wedding. It's a story about family, trust, and the painful lessons of respect. I'm Emma Collins, and what happened to me shook my entire life. I thought I was helping my brother Ryan have the wedding of his dreams. Instead, I learned the hard way that sometimes the people you'd give everything for won't even save you a seat at the table. Stay with me because this story has twists you won't see coming. I'm Emma Collins, I'm 34 years old, and I run a chain of luxury hotels along with a catering company. On the outside, it looks like I have everything together, but trust me, life didn't hand me any of this. I built it piece by piece from the ground up. My brother Ryan and we've always been close. He's only 2 years older than me, but growing up, he always acted like my protector. I remember him holding my hand on the way to school, watching out for bullies, and making sure I felt safe. That bond between us was strong, unshakable, or so I thought. Things changed when our parents divorced. I was 12, Ryan was 14. The house was filled with fights, slamming doors, and cold silence. Our dad, Robert Collins, worked all the time, and our mom, Laura Collins, felt ignored. She eventually found comfort somewhere else, and the divorce tore our home apart. After the divorce, things got even worse. Mom had never worked outside the house, and suddenly she had to get a job with outdated skills. Dad moved into a small apartment, more focused on his new girlfriend than on paying bills or checking in on us. They only talked through us, using us as messengers. Tell your father he's late on child support. Tell your mother I'll be picking you up later. It was like Ryan and I became pawns in their Cold War. So Ryan and I learned to depend on each other. We both got jobs as teenagers to help out. I worked at a diner after school, and Ryan stocked shelves at a grocery store. On nights when Mom couldn't afford groceries, we'd pool our money together and count change on our bedroom floor. I still remember Ryan telling me, "Emma, no matter what happens, we only have each other. I'll always have your back." That promise carried us through some of the hardest years of our lives. When I went to college for hospitality management, Ryan supported me. He didn't go to college himself, he started working in construction. By the time he was 23, he was already a foreman. Every month, he'd send me part of his paycheck to help me buy textbooks and pay my rent. He was my rock. He believed in me even when I doubted myself. My career started small. I worked the front desk of a boutique hotel. But I worked hard and I climbed my way up. At 27, I became the director of operations at one of the top hotels in the city. Then I took the biggest risk of my life. I bought a struggling old hotel called the Sapphire Grand. It had beautiful architecture, but it was failing. I poured everything I had into it. 18-hour days, constant stress, fixing broken systems, hiring the right people. It nearly broke me. But Ryan was always there. He'd bring his construction crew on weekends to help me with repairs for free. "Think of it as an investment in our future," he'd joke. And he wasn't wrong. After a few tough years, the Sapphire Grand became a success. From there, I bought more hotels and eventually I opened Elite Catering. By the time I turned 30, I had 5 hotels and one of the best catering services in the city. Ryan was always proud of me. He'd show up when things went wrong. Like the time a pipe burst at one of my hotels and flooded the entire lobby. He drove 3 hours in the middle of the night just to help me handle the repairs. That was the kind of brother he was. But as we got older, our parents reappeared in our lives, in their own ways. Dad tried to reconnect, but it felt more like he was showing us off to his business friends than actually caring. Mom became weirdly competitive, comparing her small successes to what she called our lucky breaks. They never really admitted that Ryan and I built our lives on our own without them. Then came Chloe Parker, the woman who would change everything. Ryan met her at a charity golf event. She was gorgeous, polished, and came from money. Old money. Her dad, Richard Parker, owned car dealerships across the region. Her mom, Margaret, was on boards of fancy cultural foundations. They were the kind of family that always wanted to remind everyone just how important they were. From the very first moment I met Chloe, I knew something was off. She was polite, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. She looked at me like I was beneath her. "Oh, you're the little sister who runs hotels? How quaint." She said it like it was a hobby, not a career. But Ryan, he was head over heels. Within weeks, he was spending all his free time with Chloe. She brought him into her world. Country clubs, expensive dinners, friends who looked at him like he didn't belong. Slowly, I started to see changes in him. He began using words like the right people and our kind of place. He even traded his pickup truck for a luxury SUV he couldn't really afford. Our sibling dinners, the ones we used to have every week, became rare. And when we did see each other, Chloe was always there, sighing if we talked about childhood memories or inside jokes she couldn't understand. It wasn't just Chloe. Her mother, Margaret, treated me like I was second class. At Ryan's birthday dinner, she asked me condescending questions about my little hotel business. When I explained what I had built, she gave me a tight smile and said, "Well, anyone can succeed these days. Of course, there's a difference between new money and real family legacy." Chloe nodded in agreement. Then she added, "I can't imagine working in service, dealing with complaints and dirty rooms. I'd never survive that." Ryan tried to defend me, but even then his words stung. "Emma's always been a hard worker. She'll probably sell the business once she settles down." That was not me at all, and he knew it. I wasn't working this hard to give it all up one day. I was building my life's work. Still, I told myself it was just a phase. That Ryan was just trying to fit into Chloe's world. I hoped the brother who once held my hand at crosswalks was still in there somewhere. Then one night Ryan called me. He was so excited he could barely talk. "She said yes, Emma." Chloe said yes, we're getting married. Despite all my doubts, I felt happy for him. He deserved love even if I didn't trust the person he chose. I curled up on my sofa and asked him all about the proposal. He had gone all out: private chef, string quartet, rose petals on the beach, and a diamond ring that cost him 6 months' salary. It all sounded perfect, maybe too perfect. Ryan had always been practical, not flashy. This wasn't the brother I knew, but I pushed those thoughts aside. "That's wonderful, Ryan. Have you set a date?" He said Chloe wanted a June wedding, but there was a problem. The venues her mother suggested were either booked or way out of his budget. He sounded stressed. That's when I suggested the Sapphire Grand, my hotel. The ballroom could fit 300 people, and the gardens would look beautiful in June. Plus, since I owned it, I could give him a big discount. First, he hesitated. Chloe wanted something like the Rosewood or the Peninsula. But I reminded him that the Sapphire Grand had just been rated higher than both in a luxury magazine. Finally, he agreed to show Chloe the place. When she and her mom came for a tour, it was tense. They criticized everything: the color scheme, the drapes, even the chairs. Margaret actually asked if I'd reupholster 200 chairs to fit Chloe's color theme. I offered chair covers instead, but Chloe pursed her lips and muttered, "Maybe we should just book the Rosewood instead." I saw the look on Ryan's face, the same pleading look from when we were kids, and he wanted me to compromise. So I swallowed my pride and said, "Show me your Pinterest board. I'll make it work." That opened the floodgates. Chloe wanted imported flowers, a champagne fountain, a tin-tier cake, the works. When my manager, Daniel, quietly gave us the estimate, Ryan nearly fainted. Even with a discount, it was over $100,000. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. I told them I'd cover the $65,000 deposit as my wedding gift. Ryan was shocked. Chloe, however, accepted immediately with a smile. It was a huge amount for me, months of profit, but I told myself it was worth it. For Ryan. For family. Imagine paying $65,000 to help your only brother have the wedding of his dreams. And then slowly realizing, you might not even be invited. This part of my story shows how little by little, I started seeing the truth. And trust me, the red flags were there all along. After I put down the $65,000 deposit, the planning moved forward quickly. Chloe decided to hire Olivia Reed, one of the city's most expensive wedding planners. Olivia was sharp, polished, and clearly used to handling demanding clients. First, I thought maybe she'd make things easier. But instead, I found myself being pushed further and further out of the process. I expected to be part of the big decisions. After all, I owned the venue and I had put down more money than anyone else. But Chloe and her mom had other ideas. They started holding tastings with my catering team without even inviting me. They asked Olivia to send emails about big changes to the ballroom, emails I was never copied on. When I asked Ryan about it, he sounded uncomfortable. "Chloe just wants everything perfect," he said. "She feels like it could be a conflict of interest if you're too involved, since it's your hotel." Conflict of interest. That stung. I wasn't trying to control the wedding, I was just trying to help. But I kept quiet, telling myself it was Ryan's day. and I didn't want to add stress. But it only got worse. Chloe and her mom started making ridiculous demands. They insisted on removing a historic chandelier from the ballroom because it didn't match their theme. They wanted my chefs to create 15 different menu options before they could decide. They booked my staff for meetings at odd hours and then canceled last minute. Through all of this, I tried to stay professional. My hotel was my pride, and I wanted the wedding to go perfectly for Ryan. My team did their best too, even though I could see the frustration on their faces. One night after yet another chaotic meeting, my manager Daniel shook his head and told me, "Emma, you're a saint. If these people weren't your family, I'd have cut them off weeks ago." Finally, the deposit was locked in $65,000 signed and processed. That money covered the ballroom, basic catering, and rooms for the wedding party. Any extras like imported flowers, the custom cake, or all those upgrades would be billed separately. I thought, okay, now everything will settle. I'll get my invitation soon and we'll all move forward. But months passed and no invitation arrived. First, I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe they assumed I didn't need one since I was the venue owner. But then my cousin Dana called me. She thanked me for her invitation, gushing about the gold foil lettering and even a handwritten note from Chloe inside. My heart dropped. Dana had hers. Other relatives had theirs. But me? Nothing. I called Ryan and asked casually, "Hey, I never got my invitation. Did it get lost in the mail?" He hesitated, then said, "Oh, I'm sure it's on the way." Chloe handled the guest list. Something didn't feel right. Weeks went by. Still no invitation. And then little by little, I noticed other things too. The bridal shower? I wasn't invited. The engagement photo shoot in the botanical gardens? Everyone in the family was there. Except me. I brushed it off, but the unease kept growing. And then one day, during a routine check-in with my event staff, I saw the seating chart Chloe had approved for the reception. I looked carefully at the list, and my name wasn't there. I stared at the paper, thinking it had to be a mistake. "There's no way," I said. "I'm the groom's sister. You must have overlooked it." But my staff looked nervous. "Miss Parker was very specific," they explained. "She went over the names multiple times herself." It was like ice water poured over me. Still, I tried to give Ryan the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe it was all a miscommunication. Surely my own brother wouldn't let this happen. Then came the family dinner. Our parents wanted to have everyone together about a month before the wedding. It was the first time in years Mom and Dad were in the same room, which showed just how big a deal this wedding was supposed to be. We all met at an upscale restaurant. Ryan, Chloe, her parents, my parents, and me. From the moment we sat down, I could feel the tension. Chloe kept whispering to her mom, shooting me looks like I didn't belong there. When the conversation turned to the wedding, they kept it vague, changing topics whenever I asked specific questions. Then Margaret Parker swirled her wine glass and said something that cut deep. "It's so important to have the right atmosphere at a wedding. The right guests, the right connections. A wedding isn't just a celebration. It's a statement about your place in society." Chloe nodded in agreement. "Some people just don't understand the social importance of an event like this," she added, looking directly at me. My father, who usually missed these hints, tried to defend me. "Emma's hotels are top-rated luxury properties. She knows all about elegance." Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, but there's a difference between serving the elite and being one of them." I felt the words like a slap. In their eyes, I wasn't family. I was the help. I looked at Ryan, waiting for him to defend me, but he just stared at his plate, silent. My mom tried to lighten the mood, pointing out how generous I had been with my financial contribution. "Emma has done so much for this wedding. The hotel looks stunning." Chloe cut in with a sharp tone. "Yes, the financial arrangement has been helpful, though we've had to make major upgrades to bring it up to standard." That was too much. My hotel, the property I had poured my life into, being dismissed as not good enough. I kept my voice calm, but inside I was burning. The Sapphire Grand is a 5-star establishment. We host diplomats, celebrities, society weddings all the time. Margaret just patted my hand like I was a child. "Of course you do, dear. And we appreciate your effort to accommodate our vision." After dinner, I tried to talk to Ryan privately, but Chloe swooped in before I could. "Ryan, we need to go over the rehearsal dinner with Daddy," she said, pulling him away. She looked back at me with a smug little smile. That was when it truly hit me. They weren't just leaving me out by accident. This was intentional. Not long after that, a friend who worked at Chloe's country club called me. She had overheard Chloe talking with her bridesmaids. Chloe was laughing about the hotel girl who thinks she's invited. She told them she actually believes she'll be sitting at the family table, as if we'd want her in the photos. But we need to keep her happy until the wedding since she controls the venue. One bridesmaid even asked, "What about the $65,000 she gave you? Isn't that wrong?" Chloe's response chilled me. That money's already spent. What's she going to do, ask for it back? Besides, Ryan says she's loaded. She'll get over it. When I heard that, my hands literally shook. My own brother knew about this. He knew what Chloe was planning, and he said nothing. I called him that night, my voice trembling. "Ryan, am I invited to your wedding or not?" He sighed heavily. "Emma, it's complicated. Chloe and her mom have very specific ideas about the guest list. They're trying to create a certain atmosphere." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. An atmosphere that doesn't include your only sister? The sister who gave you $65,000 to make this possible. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he said defensively. "Chloe's family moves in important circles. This wedding could open doors for me." "Since when do you care about circles?" I demanded. "What happened to the brother who used to say we only needed each other?" His reply was cold. "People grow up, Emma. They change. Maybe you should too." It was like a knife to the heart. Imagine this. You give your brother $65,000 for his dream wedding. You book the venue, the catering, even the hotel rooms. And then just a week before the big day, you get a phone call saying, "You're not invited. Oh, and by the way, they're keeping your money." That's exactly what happened to me. And it's the moment my heartbreak turned into fury. After that painful conversation with Ryan, I still tried to hold on to hope. I wrote him a long email, reminding him of everything we had been through together, telling him how much it hurt to be excluded. I promised that no matter what, I would still make sure the wedding went perfectly, because that's what family does. His reply, cold, short, almost like it wasn't even him writing. He thanked me for understanding and said he'd speak with Chloe about the guest list. That was it. As the days passed, I started to accept the painful truth. My brother was going to marry Chloe without me there. I kept telling myself that maybe, just maybe, I'd still get a last-minute invitation. But then came the phone call. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of a budget meeting with my executive team when my phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something told me to pick up. "Hello, is this Emma Collins?" a woman asked. "Yes, this is Emma. This is Olivia Reed. I'm the wedding planner for the Collins-Parker ceremony at the Sapphire Grand." My heart jumped. Finally, I thought some clarification. Maybe this was about the schedule or a last-minute change. "Yes, Olivia," I said politely. "What can I help you with?" She hesitated. I could hear it in her voice. "I'm calling regarding your deposit payment of $65,000. Immediately, my stomach tightened. "Yes, is there a problem with the payment? It cleared months ago." "Not exactly." Olivia's voice shifted, more businesslike. "I've been instructed by the family to inform you that your invitation to the wedding has been canceled." I froze. The words didn't even make sense at first. "Excuse me. They've revised the guest list," Olivia continued carefully. "Your attendance is no longer required. However, they wish to retain the deposit you've already provided." I had to lean against the wall for support. "Wait, you're saying I'm not invited, but they're keeping the $65,000 I paid?" "Yes," she replied quietly. "The bride, Miss Parker, and her mother gave the instruction. And I was told Mr. Collins is aware and in agreement." Ryan knew. My brother knew. I took a deep breath, trying not to break down. "May I ask why?" There was a pause. Olivia's voice softened. "I was informed that your presence might create tension." Miss Parker mentioned family dynamics. She also expressed concern that, since you own the venue, guests might confuse you with the staff rather than the family. Her words knocked the air out of me. After all I had done, after building my business from nothing, I was being dismissed as the help. I asked the question I dreaded most. Did my brother say this? I can't say for certain, Olivia admitted. The instructions came directly from Miss Parker, but she assured me that Mr. Collins agreed. That was the final blow. Ryan hadn't just stayed silent. He had gone along with it. I could feel tears burning my eyes, but then something shifted inside me. A wave of anger rose up, cutting through the pain. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. I'm not invited to my brother's wedding, but they expect to keep my $65,000, my hotel, and my catering services. That's correct, Olivia said uneasily. The deposit is considered non-refundable, and Miss Parker reminded me that you had called it a gift. A gift. That's what they were calling it. A gift they could take and then toss me aside. Olivia cleared her throat nervously. Miss Collins, are you still there? Yes, I said, my voice suddenly calm. And I want you to deliver a message to Chloe Parker and my brother. There was silence on the line. Of course, she said finally. Tell them, I said steady and cold, to cancel the entire wedding. Olivia gasped. Miss Collins, you can't. Yes, I can. I cut her off. I own the Sapphire Grand. I own Elite Catering. I own the hotel rooms they booked. And according to Section 12 of the contract, I have the right to cancel any event that violates our company's values, respect and integrity. Do you think excluding the venue owner while pocketing her money counts as respect and integrity? The line went silent. This isn't just about a wedding anymore, I continued. This is about principle. Unless I receive a formal apology and an invitation by 5 p.m. today, the Sapphire Grand will no longer host their wedding, and all deposits will be forfeited. That's the cancellation policy they signed. Olivia stammered. This is highly unusual. I've never dealt with anything like this. Neither have I said. But then again, I've never been uninvited to my brother's wedding while paying for it. I ended the call, my hands trembling, but my resolve stronger than ever. For months I had let Chloe and her mother insult me, push me aside and disrespect everything I'd built. But no more. If Ryan wanted to choose them over me, fine. But he wouldn't do it in my hotel with my money. Within minutes my phone started lighting up. Ryan called. Then Chloe. Then Margaret. I ignored every call. I went back into my budget meeting with a calm smile that startled my team. Daniel, my manager, whispered, Emma, everything okay? Actually, I said, for the first time in months, everything is crystal clear. By that afternoon, the panic had already started spreading. Olivia had clearly delivered my message, because my phone was blowing up with voicemails, texts, and emails. The wedding was only 10 days away. Over 200 guests had RSVP'd. Deposits had been made with florists, photographers, and musicians. And now, the bride's future sister-in-law was pulling the plug. At exactly 4:55 p.m., just minutes before my deadline, there was a commotion in my hotel lobby. Ryan arrived with Chloe, her parents, and even my mom and dad in tow. It was time to face them. I asked my assistant to bring them into my private conference room, not my office. This wasn't just family business anymore. This was a professional matter. When I walked in, the air was thick with tension. Chloe was red-faced, clinging to her mother's hand. Margaret looked furious. Richard Parker stood stiff and silent, sizing me up. My parents looked confused and hurt. And Ryan, my brother, looked like a stranger. His face was hard, angry, embarrassed. The moment the door shut, Ryan exploded. What the hell do you think you're doing, Emma? I stayed standing, calm and composed. I'm enforcing the contract. And I'm standing up for myself. Finally, Richard Parker, tall and imposing, stepped forward. This is outrageous. We have a binding agreement. You can't just cancel a wedding with 10 days' notice. Actually, I replied evenly, I can. Section 12 of the contract states the Sapphire Grand reserves the right to cancel any event that violates our ethical standards or risks our reputation. Margaret scoffed. Ethical standards? What nonsense. I looked straight at her. Taking $65,000 from me, using my venue, and then excluding me? That's not just unethical, it's fraud. Chloe burst into tears. We didn't exclude you, she cried. We just revised the guest list. By removing only me, I said flatly. My mom finally spoke up, bewildered. Emma, why wouldn't you be invited to your own brother's wedding? I looked at Ryan, giving him a chance to speak, to explain, to defend me. He kept his eyes on the carpet. Finally, he muttered, "It's complicated." "No," I said firmly. "It's actually very simple. Either I'm welcome as your sister, or there will be no wedding here." The room went silent. What would you do if your own brother sat silently while his fiancée tried to erase you from his life? Would you walk away, or would you stand your ground? In this part of my story, I was done being silent. For the first time in years, I told them exactly where I stood. And they had no choice but to listen. The room was heavy with silence after I spoke. You could almost hear the weight of the words hanging in the air. Margaret Parker was the first to break it. She leaned back in her chair with a bitter laugh. "This is ridiculous. All of this. Over a guest list." I kept my voice calm. "This isn't about a guest list. This is about respect. You tried to exclude me, the groom's only sister, while keeping my money and my hotel. That isn't a miscommunication. That's a betrayal." Chloe's tears turned sharp. "You offered that money as a gift. Gifts don't come with conditions." I looked straight at her. "Actually, Chloe, gifts often do, especially when there's a contract attached. And this wasn't just generosity, it was a business agreement. I covered the deposit in good faith. You don't get to rewrite the rules because it's convenient for you." Richard Parker stepped forward, his voice firm. "This is absurd. I'll be contacting our attorney. We'll sue for breach of contract if you cancel this wedding." "You're welcome to try," I said evenly. "But the contract is very clear. And I also have proof, emails, messages, that show you were planning to keep my money while cutting me out. That's not just unethical, Mr. Parker. That's fraud." His jaw tightened. He didn't like being outmaneuvered. Finally, my dad, who had been strangely quiet, spoke. "Ryan," he asked softly, "is this true? Did you agree to exclude your sister?" All eyes turned to Ryan. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his face pale. "It's complicated," he muttered. "No, Ryan," I said. "It's simple. Either I'm family or I'm not." Chloe slammed her hand on the table. "This is my wedding. I should decide who attends." I turned to her calmly. "No, Chloe. It's not just your wedding. It's Ryan's too. And Ryan is my brother. Whether you like it or not, that makes me family." Ryan finally lifted his head. For the first time, he looked at Chloe instead of me. His voice was quiet but firm. "It's our wedding, Chloe. Not just yours. And Emma is my sister. She deserves to be there." The look Chloe gave him could have cut steel. Pure venom. Margaret hissed. "Ryan, don't let her manipulate you. She's trying to ruin everything. Call her bluff. We'll find another venue." I couldn't help a small smile. "Go ahead," I said. "But it's wedding season. You'll lose your deposit here, and every other venue will want full payment up front. Good luck pulling that off in 10 days. Chloe's face drained of color. She knew I was right. She turned to her father, almost begging. "Daddy, do something." Richard rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Perhaps there's another way," he said slowly. He looked at me. "Miss Collins, what exactly do you want?" Finally, someone had asked the real question. I took a deep breath. "I want respect. I want a formal apology for the way I've been treated. I want to be acknowledged as part of this family. And I want my contribution, the $65,000, to be recognized as a gift from a loving sister, not just a business discount." "That's extortion," Margaret snapped. "No," I corrected her. "That's a boundary. I've spent months tolerating insults, disrespect, and exclusion while funding this wedding. That ends today." To everyone's surprise, my mom stood up and walked over to me. She put her hand on my shoulder and said firmly, "I agree with Emma. What you're doing is shameful, Ryan. I raised you better than this." Ryan's eyes flickered with something, shame, maybe even regret. He finally looked at me, his voice low. "I never wanted to hurt you, Emma. Yet you were willing to," I said softly. "You were willing to cut me out and keep my money. How could you think that was okay?" He swallowed hard. I thought you'd understand that sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the bigger picture." "And I was the sacrifice," I whispered. Ryan had no answer. Richard Parker broke the silence. "Let's be practical. Miss Collins, if they agree to your terms, will you allow the wedding to proceed?" I turned to Ryan. "That depends. Is that what you want, Ryan? Do you actually want me at your wedding as your sister? Or do you just see me as an obligation?" The room went still. This was the moment of truth. Ryan looked between me and Chloe, his face torn. Finally, he said quietly, "I want you there, Emma. I always did. I just lost sight of what mattered." Chloe's voice cracked with rage. "After everything she's done, you still want her there? She just threatened to destroy our wedding." Ryan stood a little taller. "After you tried to exclude her while taking her money, Chloe. Think about that." For the first time, Chloe had no comeback. I laid it out clearly. "Here's what's going to happen. I'll allow the wedding to proceed, under 3 conditions. 1, I get a formal written apology from both of you. 2, I'm treated with the respect due to a sister and family member. And 3, my $65,000 contribution is acknowledged in the program as a gift from me." Richard Parker nodded slowly. "That seems reasonable, given the circumstances." "Father," Chloe snapped. "Enough, Chloe," he said firmly. "She's right. What you and your mother did was wrong." Margaret looked like she'd swallowed poison, but she stayed silent. Finally, I turned back to Ryan. "Do we have an agreement?" He hesitated only a moment, then nodded. "Yes, Nemma. I'm sorry. Truly. I should never have let it get this far. It wasn't everything I needed to hear, but it was a start." I opened the conference room door. "Then the wedding will proceed as planned. Olivia can coordinate with my staff on final details." As everyone filed out, Ryan lingered. He turned to me, eyes glistening. "I really am sorry, Emma. I don't even recognize who I've become these past few months." I looked at him sadly. "Neither do I. But I hope you figure it out before you say I do. Marriage is hard enough when you're true to yourself." For the first time in months, I saw the brother I used to know flicker back in his eyes. Sometimes when people show you who they are, it's in the smallest moments. The slip of a smile, a whisper no one else hears, the look in their eyes when they think no one is watching. At Ryan's rehearsal dinner, I finally started to see cracks in Chloe's perfect mask. And for the first time, Ryan admitted what I had feared all along. He wasn't sure he was marrying the right person. The days after that explosive conference room meeting were tense. Chloe wasn't happy about the outcome, that much was obvious. But true to my word, I went back into professional mode. My staff worked tirelessly to get everything ready, and I made sure no detail was overlooked. Olivia, the wedding planner, was more careful around me now. At one point, she even apologized quietly. "Had I known you owned the Sapphire Grand, Miss Collins, I never would have agreed to make that phone call. I was just following instructions." I waved her apology off. "You were doing your job. But maybe in the future, if someone asks you to exclude immediate family while keeping their money, that should raise a red flag." She winced. "Lesson learned, believe me." 2 nights before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner was held at a private dining room in one of the city's nicest restaurants. I walked in wearing a deep navy dress that made me feel confident, head held high. As I entered, conversations hushed. People turned to look at me, whispers passing between them. I knew the rumors had spread. Everyone had heard about the drama between me, Ryan, and Chloe's family. Now they were waiting to see if I'd make a scene. Ryan spotted me first. He came over quickly, kissed me on the cheek, and led me to a seat near the head table. Chloe stayed seated, giving me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Margaret didn't even acknowledge me. But to my surprise, Richard Parker stood and extended his hand. "Miss Collins," he said, "I want to apologize for the unpleasantness earlier this week. In business, I've always valued directness and integrity. You displayed both, and I respect that." Caught me off guard. I shook his hand and said, "Thank you, Mr. Parker. I appreciate that." "Please," he said with a small smile, "call me Richard. We're about to be family after all." Dinner went smoothly on the surface, but I kept noticing the little things. Chloe was in full bride mode, gracious, smiling, accepting compliments. But whenever the attention shifted away, her mask slipped. She whispered sharp instructions to the staff, glared at guests who interrupted her, and shot me icy looks across the table. Margaret avoided me completely, but Richard was different. Every so often, I caught him watching Chloe with a thoughtful expression, as if even he was beginning to see sides of her he didn't like. After dessert, I stepped out onto the terrace to get some air. The city lights sparkled, the summer night warm against my skin. For a moment I just breathed, letting the tension roll off me. Then Ryan appeared. "There you are," he said softly, joining me at the railing. "You look beautiful tonight, Emma." "Thank you," I said. "It's a lovely evening." We stood in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that used to be comfortable between us. Finally, Ryan spoke. "Do you remember when we used to sit on Mom's fire escape, looking at the stars? You'd talk about owning a little inn with a garden. I'd talk about building skyscrapers." I smiled at the memory. "Life turned out differently than we expected. Better in some ways," he said quietly. Then his face grew serious. "I keep thinking about what you said the other day, about being true to yourself." I stayed quiet, waiting. "I don't know if I am, Emma," he admitted. "Everything with Chloe happened so fast. She was beautiful, sophisticated. She made me feel like I'd been admitted into a world I never belonged to before. And I wanted so badly to keep up. And now," I asked gently. He sighed. "Now I'm standing here with my sister, hiding from my own rehearsal dinner, wondering if I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life." My heart ached for him, but I knew this was his battle to fight. "Cold feet are normal before a wedding," I said carefully. "This feels like more than cold feet," he said, running a hand through his hair. "The way Chloe and her mom treated you. It opened my eyes. I've ignored so many things. The way she talks to waiters. The way she criticizes my friends. The way she keeps pushing me to change everything about myself. Those are serious concerns, Ryan," I said softly. "I know," he whispered. "But the wedding is in 2 days. Everything's paid for. Guests are already here. Canceling now would be a disaster." "More of a disaster than a divorce in a year?" I asked gently. "Or 5 years? Or after children are involved?" He didn't answer. Just then Chloe's voice cut through the night. "There you are, Ryan." She walked out onto the terrace, her smile painted on. "Everyone's asking where you disappeared to." Ryan quickly composed himself. "Just getting some air with Emma." Chloe's eyes flicked between us, suspicion in her gaze. "Don't be too long. The Harringtons are leaving, and they came all the way from London." As soon as she went back inside, Ryan gave me a small, helpless smile. "I should go." "Of course," I said, touching his arm gently. "But Ryan, whatever you decide, I'll support you. That's what real family does." For the first time in months, I saw a flicker of my brother, the real Ryan behind his tired eyes. Picture this. 200 guests. A ballroom glowing with candles and flowers. The music swells, the bride walks down the aisle, and everyone is waiting for the big "I do." But instead of vows, my brother stopped the wedding. He looked at me in the front row, and what he said next left the entire room in shock. The morning of the wedding was bright and beautiful. Exactly what Chloe had wanted. Clear skies, warm air, and sunlight spilling through the windows of the Sapphire Grand. My hotel had been transformed. White roses and orchids draped across every surface. Candles glittered from crystal holders, and the chandeliers sparkled like diamonds. It looked like something out of a magazine. Chloe's dream. I sat in the front row, not just as the venue owner, but finally as family. It had taken a fight to get here, but I was determined to hold my head high. I wore a deep emerald dress, elegant but understated. Across the aisle, I could feel Margaret's disapproval burning into me. Richard gave me a polite nod. Ryan, at the altar, looked handsome in his tuxedo but tense. The music began. The bridal procession walked slowly down the aisle. Bridesmaids in pale blush gowns, groomsmen looking polished. Then the music shifted to the bridal march. Everyone turned. Chloe appeared at the back of the ballroom on her father's arm. Gasps filled the room. She was stunning, no one could deny it. The dress was custom, fitted perfectly, with lace and silk flowing behind her like a river of white. She held her bouquet like a queen holding a scepter. Her face glowed, half from makeup, half from the pride of being the center of attention. She walked slowly, smiling at guests, soaking in every admiring look. Margaret looked ready to cry tears of triumph. Richard held himself tall, proud. When Chloe reached the altar, Ryan took her hand. They faced the minister. The ceremony began, words of tradition filling the air. Everyone listened quietly, waiting for the vows. Then the minister spoke the familiar phrase, "If anyone here can show just cause why these two should not be lawfully joined in matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The room went still. Ryan's eyes found mine. Our gazes locked, and I saw it. The flicker of something I hadn't seen in months. Clarity. Truth. My brother, the real Ryan, looking back at me. And then he spoke. I have something to say. A ripple of shock ran through the crowd. Whispers filled the air. The minister looked startled. Mr. Collins? Ryan's voice was steady. I can't do this. Not like this. Gasps erupted. Chloe stiffened beside him, her bouquet trembling. What are you doing? She hissed. I'm sorry, Ryan said clearly, his voice carrying through the room. Chloe, you're beautiful, accomplished, and you'll make someone very happy one day. But that someone isn't me. The room erupted with shocked murmurs. Margaret's face twisted with rage. Richard's jaw clenched. Ryan turned to the guests. I've been trying to become someone I'm not, to fit into a world that isn't mine. And in the process, I almost lost the person who's always been there for me, my sister. She believed in me when no one else did. She supported me, even when I didn't deserve it. And she nearly got cut out of my life because I was too blind to see what was happening. Tears burned my eyes. For the first time in months, I recognized my brother again. Ryan looked back at Chloe. I can't marry you. This wedding is canceled. Chaos. That's the only word to describe what happened next. Chloe dropped her bouquet, her face contorting into fury and humiliation. You can't do this. In front of everyone, she screamed. Margaret rushed forward, wrapping her arms around Chloe. This is outrageous. We'll sue. You've ruined her reputation. Richard looked grim but stayed quiet, his eyes locked on his daughter. Guests gasped, whispered, some even stood to leave. The minister looked like he wished he could disappear. Ryan stepped down from the altar, walked straight to me and took my hand. Let's go. I stood, still in shock, and followed him out of the ballroom. Behind us, Chloe's sobs echoed, Margaret's angry shouts filling the air. We escaped into my office, closing the door against the noise. Ryan sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Then, to my surprise, he started laughing and crying at the same time. Did you see their faces? He choked out. I did, I said softly, handing him a glass of water. I can't believe I just did that, he said, shaking his head. I left her at the altar. You did what you had to do, I said firmly. You chose yourself. And you chose honesty. He exhaled, finally looking up at me. I'm going to pay for this. Financially. Socially. But the moment the minister asked that question, all I could think about was how Chloe and her mom treated you. How they were willing to use you and throw you away. And I realized if I went through with this, I'd be endorsing that behavior. I'd be becoming one of them. I squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you, Ryan. That took real courage. He gave me a weak smile. I learned it from my little sister, the hotel girl who built an empire and stayed true to herself. Later that day, as word spread, the backlash began. The Parkers demanded repayment for their expenses. Some of Chloe's society friends spread cruel rumors, but Ryan's true friends stood by him. As for me, I had my brother back, and that was worth more than any wedding or any social circle. The Sapphire Grand didn't suffer. If anything, my reputation grew stronger. Olivia, the wedding planner, told me quietly, everyone knows the Parkers are difficult clients. The way you stood your ground? People in this industry respect that. It was bittersweet, yes, but in that moment I realized something important. Sometimes the hardest decisions free you from the worst traps. When a groom walks away from the altar, it doesn't just end a wedding. It starts a storm. In the days after Ryan canceled, Chloe and her mother unleashed their fury. But the way they reacted only proved one thing. Ryan had made the right choice. The hours after the canceled ceremony were pure chaos. My phone didn't stop buzzing, texts, calls, voicemails, emails. Guests wanted to know what happened, vendors demanded answers, and the press even called my hotel trying to confirm rumors. I shut it all down. My staff knew to say nothing. No comment was the only response anyone got. Ryan, meanwhile, was a wreck. He stayed in one of the hotel's suites that night, pacing, drinking water, barely sleeping. I checked in on him a few times just to make sure he wasn't spiraling. Every time he said the same thing. I did the right thing. I know I did. But God, Emma, it hurts. And it did. No matter how toxic Chloe had been, Ryan had still loved her. Or at least the version of her he thought was real. Letting go of that wasn't easy. The next morning, Margaret showed up at the Sapphire Grand with Chloe in tow. They stormed into the lobby like they owned the place, demanding to see me. I met them in the conference room just like before. Margaret slammed her purse on the table. "This is unacceptable. You humiliated my daughter in front of 200 people. We'll sue for every penny of damages." I kept my voice steady. "Mrs. Parker, your daughter wasn't humiliated by me. She was left at the altar by my brother. That was Ryan's choice." Chloe's face was blotchy from crying, but her eyes were filled with rage. "He ruined my life. Do you know how embarrassing this is? Everyone will think I wasn't good enough." I folded my hands on the table. "Chloe, you're more than good enough for someone who shares your values. But for Ryan, it wasn't a fit. He finally realized it." Margaret leaned forward, her voice sharp as glass. "You poisoned him against her. You and your petty jealousy. You couldn't stand that she was from a better family, so you sabotaged everything." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. If Chloe truly loved Ryan, she wouldn't have tried to erase me from his life. That's what sabotaged this marriage, not me. Richard wasn't there this time. I wondered if maybe he'd already washed his hands of the mess. They did try to sue just like Margaret threatened. Their lawyers sent letters claiming emotional distress, reputational damage, and financial loss. Ryan consulted with his own attorney, and guess what? The Parkers didn't have a case. Yes, they lost deposits. Yes, it was embarrassing. But a broken engagement isn't illegal. No matter how humiliating it was socially, Ryan had the right to call it off. When the Parker family realized they wouldn't win in court, they turned to gossip instead. Suddenly, whispers started spreading. That Ryan was unstable. That I was controlling. That my hotel was desperate for attention. It stung, but I let the rumors pass. Because for every ugly word they spread, there were just as many people quietly telling me, "You did the right thing. You saved him." Meanwhile, Ryan struggled. He avoided social media. He ignored most calls. But slowly, day by day, I saw my brother coming back to life. One evening, we sat in the hotel lounge, nursing cups of coffee. He looked exhausted but calmer. "I keep thinking about how I ignored all the signs," he admitted. "You tried to warn me, Emma. I didn't listen. You wanted love," I said gently. "And there's nothing wrong with that. But love doesn't try to cut you off from family. It doesn't demand you change who you are." He nodded slowly. "I know that now. And I'll never let it happen again." For the first time in months, I believed him. As for Chloe, she didn't waste time wallowing. Within 3 weeks, she was back on social media, posting glamorous photos from trips with her friends. Lavish dinners, designer outfits, champagne toasts. One post in particular made me shake my head. A picture of her laughing in Paris captioned, "Living my best life. No groom required." It didn't take long before rumors swirled that she was already seeing someone new. Another wealthy businessman her mother had introduced her to. Ryan saw the photos too. One night he handed me his phone, showing me her smiling face on Instagram. "Was any of it real, Emma? Did she ever actually love me?" I looked him straight in the eye. "She loved the idea of what you could give her. But she didn't love you. Not the real you." He set the phone down with a heavy sigh. "Then I guess I dodged a bullet." "Yes," I said softly. "You did." The Sapphire Grand's reputation didn't suffer. In fact, it soared. People whispered about the drama, sure, but it made the hotel even more famous. Guests booked rooms just to say they stayed at the place where the bride got left at the altar. Our bookings doubled for the next quarter. One night, Daniel, my manager, clinked his glass against mine at a staff dinner. "To Emma Collins," he said with a grin. "The woman who turned a scandal into free publicity." Everyone laughed. And for once I laughed too. But the best part wasn't the business boost. It was my relationship with Ryan. We started spending more time together again, dinners, movies, even just long walks around the city. Slowly, the bond we had as kids returned. One evening he told me, "Emma, I don't know how to thank you. You didn't just save me from a bad marriage. You reminded me who I am." I smiled. That's what family is for. Sometimes the end of one chapter is the beginning of another. After Ryan walked away from Chloe, people thought his life was ruined. But little by little, he started rebuilding. And together, we both discovered that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted clears the path for what you really need. The weeks after the wedding that never happened were rough. Ryan took a leave of absence from work. avoiding the office until the gossip died down. The whispers followed him, of course. In our city, society never forgets a scandal. But instead of hiding forever, Ryan made a decision. I can't keep running, he told me one afternoon over coffee. If I let this define me, I'll never move on. So he went back. He walked into that office with his head high, even though he knew the stares and whispers would come. And you know what? Within a week the noise faded, because work speaks louder than rumors. And Ryan was good at his job, really good. By the end of the month, his boss even pulled him aside. I'm glad you're back, Collins. Personal life aside, you're one of our best. That meant more to Ryan than he admitted out loud, but I could see the relief on his face. As for me, the Sapphire Grand was busier than ever. Our phone lines were jammed with new booking requests. Couples loved the idea of getting married at the famous venue, where the groom had taken a stand. Our reputation for integrity spread, and people respected us more. Then came the biggest surprise of all. One morning, I got a call from a prestigious hospitality magazine. Miss Collins, the editor said, we'd like to feature you in our upcoming issue on powerful women in business. Your story, the way you stood your ground, the way you built the Sapphire Grand from the ground up, it's inspiring. Would you agree to an interview? I was stunned. Of course, I said. The article came out a month later, complete with glossy photos of the hotel and a headline that read, Emma Collins, the woman who built an empire on integrity. I never cared much for fame, but seeing my story told that way, it reminded me how far I'd come. Ryan read the article too. He showed up at my office holding a copy, grinning. Look at you, Em. My sister, the empire builder. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't hide my smile. It's just a magazine. No, he said seriously. It's proof. Proof that you didn't just save me, Emma. You built something real, something no one can take away. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly proud, not just of my business but of myself. With the chaos behind us, Ryan and I started spending even more time together. We had dinners, went on hikes, even took a weekend trip back to the little town where we grew up. Standing outside our old house, Ryan laughed. Remember when we used to draw floor plans for our dream houses on the back porch? I do, I said. And you always added a basketball court. And you always added a library, he said with a grin. Felt good to laugh like that again. But the healing wasn't just about laughter. There were nights when Ryan confessed just how close he had been to losing himself completely. I almost married into a family that didn't respect me, he said quietly one evening. If you hadn't fought back, Emma, I would have gone through with it. I would have been miserable for the rest of my life. I squeezed his hand. That's what sisters are for. We hold up a mirror when you can't see clearly. And I'll never forget it, he promised. Not everyone moved on so easily, though. Chloe still popped up on social media, flaunting her glamorous lifestyle. Rumor had it she was already engaged to someone new, a wealthy older man her mother had introduced her to. Ryan saw one of the posts and shook his head. She's already moved on. Just like that. I looked at him carefully. Does it hurt? He thought for a moment. It stings. But not because I miss her. It stings because I realize how little I actually mattered to her. That's not on you, I reminded him. That's on her. He nodded. Yeah, and honestly, I'm glad it's over. Better now than later. As Ryan rebuilt his life, something unexpected happened. He started mentoring younger coworkers at his office. People who looked up to him, people who had heard about what happened but admired how he handled it afterward. One of them even told him, "You showed us it's okay to walk away from the wrong path. That takes guts." When Ryan told me that story, he smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe I didn't lose everything, Emma. Maybe I gained something. You did, I said softly. You gained yourself back. Meanwhile, I kept pushing the Sapphire Grand forward. We expanded our services, hosted more events, and I even started plans for a second location. One evening, Ryan and I sat on the terrace of the hotel, watching the city lights. You know what I think we should do one day? Ryan said, sipping his drink. What's that? Open a place together. Not just business, you and me. A project where we both put in what we love. I raised an eyebrow. You? In hospitality. He laughed. Not exactly, but maybe something like a cultural center. A place for events, sports, arts. You bring the elegance, I bring the structure. The idea made me smile. For the first time I could actually picture it. Maybe one day, I said. Family doesn't always mean support. Sometimes it means silence. After Ryan's wedding collapsed, our parents finally came to me. Not to thank me, but to question me. And in that moment I had to face the truth I'd been avoiding my whole life. I wasn't just fighting Chloe or Margaret. I had been fighting for my place in my own family from the very beginning. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, about 3 weeks after the canceled wedding. I was in my office at the Sapphire Grand, reviewing new contracts, when my assistant knocked gently. "Miss Collins," she said, "your parents are here. Should I send them in?" I blinked. My parents almost never visited me at the hotel. They had been strangely quiet through all of the drama, neither defending me nor attacking me. Just quiet. "Yes," I said finally. "Send them in." They entered together. My mom looked nervous, clutching her purse. My dad looked serious, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets. "Emma," my mom began softly, "we need to talk." We sat around the small meeting table in my office. For a moment no one spoke. Finally my dad broke the silence. "Your brother's wedding was a disaster," he said bluntly. I folded my hands, steadying myself. "Yes, because Ryan realized he couldn't marry someone who didn't respect him or his family." Mom winced. "Emma, people are saying awful things. That you stirred up trouble. That you embarrassed Ryan in front of everyone." My chest tightened. "Is that what you believe?" They exchanged a look, one of those silent parental conversations I'd seen my whole life. Then Dad spoke again. "We're not saying you were wrong to stand up for yourself. But, did it have to come to this? Couldn't you have handled it more quietly?" That hit me hard. Not because it was harsh, but because it was exactly what I'd expected. I leaned forward, my voice steady. "Do you have any idea what it felt like to hear that I was being cut out of Ryan's wedding? To know Chloe and her mother were using me for my money, then trying to erase me?" Mom's eyes softened, but she stayed silent. Dad just sighed. "I didn't create this drama," I continued. "I exposed it. If I hadn't spoken up, Ryan would be married right now to someone who saw me as disposable. And you both would have let it happen." Mom flinched. "That's not fair, Emma. We didn't want to take sides." "Not taking sides," I said quietly, "was the same as siding against me." For a long moment the room was quiet. Then my mom whispered, "We just wanted peace." I looked at her, feeling the weight of years behind my words. "Peace at what cost, Mom? Do you know how many times growing up I felt invisible? How many times I swallowed my hurt because Ryan was the golden child and I was just the responsible one?" Tears welled in her eyes. Dad's face hardened. "That's not true." "It is true," I said firmly. "Ryan was celebrated for every little thing. I was expected to hold everything together, quietly, without recognition. And when Chloe tried to erase me, it felt like confirmation that I was never really part of this family in the same way." For once my parents didn't have a quick reply. Finally, Mom reached across the table, her hand trembling as she touched mine. "Emma, I'm sorry. We didn't see it that way. But maybe we should have. Maybe we failed you." Her voice cracked, and for the first time I saw guilt in her eyes. Real guilt. Dad shifted uncomfortably, but he didn't argue this time. He just looked down at the table. Then Mom said something I never expected. "Do you know why we leaned so much on you? Because we trusted you. Because we knew you were strong. With Ryan we always worried he'd fall apart. But you, we thought you didn't need us." Her words hit me like a punch. "I did need you," I whispered. "I needed you to notice. I needed you to stand up for me, not just Ryan. I needed to feel like your daughter, not just your anchor." Tears slipped down her cheeks. Dad finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. "Emma, we were wrong. I was wrong. You're right. You deserved better from us." For the first time in my adult life, I saw my father admit fault. We sat there in silence for a while, just breathing, letting the weight of unspoken years finally spill into the open. Eventually, my mom said, "We can't change the past, but we can do better now. Please give us the chance." I looked at them both, my emotions raw. "I don't know if I can forget the hurt, but I'll try. Because family is worth trying for." When they left, I sat alone in my office, staring out the window at the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt something shift. A crack in the wall I had built around myself. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. Later that night, I called Ryan and told him about the conversation. He was quiet for a long time, then said, "Wow, Mom and Dad actually admitted they were wrong." "Yes," I said softly, "and I think they meant it." Ryan let out a breath. Maybe this whole disaster wasn't for nothing. Maybe it forced all of us to finally face the truth. I thought about that, and for once I agreed. Life doesn't stop when everything falls apart. Sometimes that's exactly when it begins again. After Ryan's broken wedding and my own battles with family, I realized something. Survival isn't enough. You have to grow. You have to choose what comes next. And in this chapter of my life, both Ryan and I started building something new. The Sapphire Grand was busier than ever. After the canceled wedding, bookings didn't slow down, they skyrocketed. Couples wanted to say they had their wedding at the famous hotel. Reporters wanted interviews. Investors wanted meetings. I could have coasted on the success, but instead I started thinking bigger. One afternoon, Daniel, my manager, walked into my office with a stack of proposals. "Emma," he said, "we have two serious offers. Investors want to back a second location, one in Miami, one in Chicago. Both are prime." I looked at the papers, my heart racing. Expanding had always been my dream, but it felt huge. Risky. "Do you think we're ready?" I asked. Daniel smiled. "Emma, if anyone's ready, it's you. You turned a wedding scandal into a marketing miracle. You built this place from scratch. This is the next step." I stared out the window at the city skyline, imagining the possibilities. A Sapphire Grand in another city. My name not just in one place but two. For the first time, I didn't just feel like a survivor. I felt like a builder. Meanwhile, Ryan was finding his own footing again. The whispers at his office had faded. He was back to handling big accounts, proving himself with numbers and results. But outside of work, he was quiet. One evening over dinner, I asked him, "So when are you going to start dating again?" He nearly choked on his drink. "Dating? Already?" I laughed. "It's been months. You can't let Chloe define the rest of your life." He shook his head. "I'm not ready. I need to figure out who I am without someone telling me what to wear, who to be, or what friends I should keep." I nodded. "That's fair. But don't close yourself off forever. You deserve someone who loves the real you." His expression softened. "And you deserve someone who loves you too, Emma. When was the last time you went on a date?" I rolled my eyes. Touché. Still, I saw changes in him. He started coaching a youth basketball team at the community center on weekends. He laughed more. He reconnected with old friends he'd lost touch with. One Saturday, I went to watch one of his games. The kids adored him. They called him Coach Ryan, running up to high-five him after every play. As I watched, something struck me. This was who Ryan was meant to be. Not the polished fiancé of a society princess. Not a man pretending to fit into someone else's mold, but a man who gave back, who encouraged, who led with heart. Later over pizza, I told him, "I think you found your thing." He grinned. "Yeah, and it feels good." As for me, I finally decided to take the plunge. After weeks of weighing options, I signed the papers to open a second Sapphire Grand in Chicago. When the deal was finalized, I stood in the empty space of what would soon be our new lobby. The place was raw. Just bare walls and dust. But in my mind I saw chandeliers, marble floors, and guests walking through the doors with smiles. Ryan came to see it too. He whistled low. "You're really doing it, huh? A second empire." I smiled. "One step at a time. But yes, I'm doing it." He looked proud. "I always knew you could. Even when we were kids drawing dream houses on the porch, I knew you'd build something real one day." That moment meant more to me than any magazine article or investor praise. Hearing it from him, my brother, was everything. But success didn't erase the scars of what we'd been through. There were nights I still thought about Chloe's words, Margaret's venom, even my parents' silence. Sometimes I lay awake, wondering if I had been too harsh, too unforgiving. Then I'd remember Ryan's face at the altar, the relief in his voice when he said, "I can't do this." And I knew deep down I had been right to fight. Because sometimes standing your ground doesn't just save you, saves the people you love. One evening, Ryan and I were sitting on the hotel terrace, looking out at the city. He said quietly, "You know, if I had gone through with it, I think I would have lost myself completely." "You were already losing yourself," I reminded him gently. He nodded. But you pulled me back. You saved me. And I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you for that. I looked at him, my heart full. You don't have to repay me, Ryan. Just be my brother again. That's all I ever wanted. For once, his smile was easy, genuine. Deal. Every story has an ending, but not every ending is what you expect. For my brother and me, what began as betrayal and heartbreak turned into something else. A second chance. And in the quiet after all the chaos, we learned that sometimes the hardest battles bring you home. The new Sapphire Grand in Chicago was underway. Construction crews hammered and painted, designers laid out floor plans, and I flew back and forth between cities almost every week. It was exhausting but also thrilling. One evening, I returned to the original hotel to find Ryan waiting in the lobby. He had that look on his face, the one he wore as a kid when he had big news. What's going on? I asked, setting down my bag. I met someone, he said simply. I froze, then slowly smiled. You did? Yeah, he said almost shyly. Her name's Claire. She works at the community center. She's funny, down to earth, nothing like… He trailed off. Nothing like Chloe, I finished for him. He nodded. She doesn't care about my job title or my bank account. She just likes me. The real me. I reached out, squeezing his arm. That's all you ever needed. Over the next few weeks, I watched Ryan come back to life in ways I hadn't seen in years. He laughed more. He talked about future plans. Not with anxiety, but with excitement. One night at dinner, he leaned across the table and said, Emma, I finally get it. Love isn't about status or appearances. It's about showing up. It's about someone seeing you, even when you're at your worst. I smiled. And you deserve that. He looked at me seriously. And so do you. Don't hide behind this hotel forever. You built an empire, but don't forget. You deserve someone who loves you too. His words stayed with me long after that dinner. As for our parents, the shift continued. Things weren't perfect. Years of silence and favoritism don't disappear overnight, but there were changes. My dad called more often. My mom asked about my business, not just about Ryan. One evening, Mom surprised me by saying, Emma, we're proud of you. We should have said it sooner. I didn't cry, though I wanted to. I just said softly, thank you. Sometimes, healing doesn't come with grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in small, steady steps. Months later, when the Chicago Sapphire Grand finally opened, Ryan flew out for the ribbon cutting. He stood beside me as the cameras flashed, the crowd applauded, and the doors opened to guests for the very first time. You did it, he whispered, pride shining in his eyes. No, I said, smiling at him. We did it. I couldn't have survived everything without you. But the real ending came one quiet night, weeks later. Ryan and I sat on the terrace of the original Sapphire Grand, looking out at the city lights. You know what I realized, Emma? He said softly. What's that? All of this, the canceled wedding, the lawsuits, the gossip, it wasn't really about Chloe. It was about us. About our family finally facing the truth. About me finally growing up. About you finally getting the recognition you deserved. I looked at him, my heart full. Maybe some battles are worth fighting, even when they're painful. He nodded. Especially when they're painful. I thought back to the moment Olivia, the wedding planner, called me to say my family had canceled my invitation. Back to the sting, the humiliation, the fire it lit inside me. If you had told me then that the same story would end here, with a stronger bond with my brother, with respect from my parents, with 2 thriving hotels, I would never have believed it. But life has a way of turning scars into maps. And mine led me here. As the night deepened, Ryan raised his glass to me. To second chances, he said. I lifted mine too. To family, the kind you fight for. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt right. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: never let anyone erase you. Never let someone convince you that your worth depends on their approval. Family, real family, doesn't try to silence you. Real love doesn't demand you disappear. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply stand your ground.